Good morning, everyone. I'm Asha Nayaswami, and we're continuing with our fireside chats, sheltering in place with the divine. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Beloved Master Paramhansa Yogananda, Saints of all religions, dearest friend Swami Kriyananda, humbly we bow to you all. Help us to feel your presence, that we may be calm and joyful, energetic and determined, and accept with gratitude whatever circumstances you bring to us, giving us the faith that you are always guiding and blessing us, taking us by the only sure route to our divine home in thee. Om. Peace. Amen. All right, my friends, we've been talking now for a number of days about a renunciate order for the new age. And there are 4 vows that are possible for a person to take to be part of this order. I'm telling you all this as a point of information, but also this is now, we're really talking about something actually everybody can do. And as I have explained through this, even though Swamiji writes in his book, A Renunciate Order for the New Age, that special respect is given to Paramhansa Yogananda as the founding Swami, the founding sannyasi of the order. This is not a path of discipleship to that particular line of masters. This is a path for those who wish to deepen their devotion to God. Now, the Naya Swami order is defined by what Swami actually calls, I think he calls it the vow of complete renunciation, which makes one a sannyasi and is the equivalent of what has always been considered a Swami. And so that is the definition of it. And anyone else who enters into it is heading toward that goal. And taking a lesser vow, lesser is well, it is lesser because the Naya Swami vow is a vow of complete renunciation, whereas, for example, the one I'm going to describe today is a vow of intention. So we're setting a course for ourselves, knowing what the end of that course is. So one may wish to reach that final point, recognizing that at this time, this is the appropriate step for me. The reason I'm putting it that way is because if that final state of complete renunciation is not an ideal that one aspires to, then one should not put one's foot on this, even on the first step of this. One may recognize that it may be all of this lifetime and a whole lot of others before one ever reaches and feels at home at that on the mountaintop. But one still has to realize that I'm on that road, however long it takes me to get there. So it's defined by the vow of complete renunciation. And if we think in traditional monastic terms, which in the West we're more familiar with, you have not, in a convent, you would have postulants, you would have novices, and then you would have fully professed, is what they would call it. A postulant has an intention to carry out this, to arrive at the final goal of complete renunciation. A novice is exactly what that word says. They're living the life, but they're newer at it. They're a novice. So the vow they have taken is a serious one, and in its lifestyle, it replicates what a fully professed sister, I'm talking about a Catholic order, would do. But then there comes a point where it is appropriate. And it isn't a question like, climbing the corporate ladder or anything like that. It's that this action matches my vibration now. This is really who I am. When we take a vow, I mean, vows are big, and one of the lines of the Naya Swami order, Naya Swami vow of complete renunciation, which I took in 2009, says, "I no longer exist as a separate entity." So this is not something that you can just declare, but there comes a point where it's the right size. It's the right size picture to put in front of you. When I teach people about affirmations, one of the points that I've learned is that an affirmation declares a reality that you're hoping to achieve. But if you declare a reality that's too much bigger than what your actual realization is right now, rather than strengthening you, it actually weakens you, because too much of you knows that it's not the truth. Um, I am perfect in the eyes of God. I am perfect in everything I do. Everything that happens is perfect for me. And you think, really? Your subconscious mind, even as you say it, just rebels against it. So you have to have something that stretches you, that you have glimpsed sufficiently, but that still allows you to stand with some confidence that I have the ability to do this. So the Naya Swami vow is the complete renunciation vow. And then the equivalent of novices, which is it's the same life, but I'm not absolutely ready to be able to say this is it for the rest of my incarnation. And in the new renunciate order, the Naya Swami order, there is traditionally the brahmachari, and brahmacharis are brahmacharis and brahmacharinis. It's the vow of brahmacharya, in which you learn to control your energy. So the tradition of that's a celibate monastic life, and it's a commitment that I don't want to. I'm not going to actively go through the householder stage of life. I'm going to take a vow, whatever stage of life I'm in, and I'm not going to go through the householder stage, or the householder stage is behind me, but I don't feel quite ready for the complete vow of renunciation. So I become a brahmachari or a brahmacharini. And that's also more recognizable, because it tends to be renouncing all belongings, all human relationships, all partnerships, and so on like that, all sexuality. But because we're also a married order, so there can be married Naya Swamis, there has to be a novice vow for married couples. And so Swami added that, and that's one of his original contributions, and that's called the Tyagi vow. And that's for married couples who intend to become Naya Swamis together. So being a brahmachari is not appropriate because there's already a marriage in place. But they're not quite ready to take the final vow, so they become Tyagis. So Tyagi and Brahmacharya are equivalent, one for married couples, one for single people. So that was how Swami set it up originally. But part of what he was setting it up in that first initiation in November was that no one who was raising children could be a Tyagi. Raising children implies that you're not a brahmachari, obviously, at least at one point you weren't. Or you're coupled and you're raising children. Because he said, raising children requires a personal relationship with your children that is not appropriate for a Tyagi. It was a very interesting comment he made. You have this personal commitment, and you have to, if you're two adults, you can make an agreement about how your relationship is going to go forward, but you can't impose that on a child. You have to be personally, deeply involved with that child. And Swami also added, you cannot make a commitment that could contradict the commitment you've already made to your child, because your child may need something from you that vow of Tyagi or that vow of Brahmacharya, and I don't just mean partnership or something like that, but if your child turns out to be a musical prodigy and you have to start traveling the world in order to provide its destiny, if that child has special needs that require you to earn money in a way that you might not have had to earn money before, or have to move to an environment that'll provide what that child may need, or just in one way or another, your life is not your own. So you have to take care of that karma. You can't in the name of God, neglect that karma. I would say only in very special circumstances. But as a principle, Swamiji felt to initiate parents of children under 18, anybody who's raising children is how he put it. Anybody who's raising children could not take either Tyagi or Brahmachari vows, or Naya Swami vows, of course. So that left a lot of people out. And a lot of people were, it actually became a bit of a small kerfuffle, even at the first initiation, about what all those sincere devotees who had always been part of Ananda wanted to do. Just to make it more confusing, we do have another. We have a Sevak order. We have an actual order within Ananda that is Ananda, which is completely separate from this, in which householders are easily included. So it's not as if they weren't provided for, but they wanted to be part of this. So Swami actually reflected on it, and then he added this fourth vow, which is what I will talk about, I hope, completely today, and if not, I'll go to tomorrow. It's called the Pilgrim's Vow of Intention. And so this allows those who perhaps are unmarried but wish to be married, and therefore cannot yet either be Tyagis or Brahmacharis, because they don't want to be Brahmacharis. They want to have a partner, but they just don't have a partner yet. Young couples who intend to raise families, and individuals who are just whatever they are for whatever reason, including, for example, someone whose partner is not sympathetic. And it would be a contradiction of your commitment to your partner for you to also, or your partner might not be supportive, or you just might not feel it's right. So, the Pilgrim's Vow of Intention, and in many ways, I think the Pilgrim's Vow of Intention is one of the magnificent contributions, and may in time turn out to be one of the most important contributions, or an important contribution of the whole Naya Swami order, because it allows, I was going to use the phrase ordinary people, but by that I mean people living ordinary lives that don't look any different from anyone else's. The Ananda order, the Sevaka order, requires that you live in community. And even though maybe 1,000 people around the world with Ananda live in community, and that's a big number, that's a very small number compared to the reach of Swamiji's work and the reach of Master's work and the divine inspiration that's moving the planet right now. There's many people who deeply desire to have a way, and I'm talking to you because you can do this, deeply desire to have a way to be more than just an ordinary person. And of course, if you feel attuned to the path of Paramahansa Yogananda and so on, again, through Ananda and through other sources, you can become a disciple, you can take Kriya, but perhaps you're on another path that yet doesn't give you this avenue. Or maybe you're just a profound truth seeker who doesn't yet know where you belong, but the heart longs to be able to make a declaration and to take a stand. The Catholic Church has these ideas of sacraments, that certain things are sacraments. Marriage, for example, is a sacrament, and various other things. I can't conjure them up because I wasn't trained that way. But the idea of a sacrament, to me, has always been profoundly moving. And the idea of taking a vow, to me, has always been profoundly moving. Not for the sake of standing in front of others or anything like that, but for myself. To be able to say, I am a disciple, or I am a truth seeker. I've put a line in the sand, and this is who I am, and this is who I will be. The vow that I've taken as a Naya Swami, well, I've memorized it most of the time, but I also keep it in written form in several places in my house, because it's my life definition. Who am I? I am the gradual fulfillment of this vow. And it thrills me, is actually the word I want to use. It's just thrilling to have been blessed sufficiently to be able to stand and say, this is who I am. And it isn't a question of, and Swami writes about this a great deal in the Renunciate Order, it isn't a question of being able to separate yourself out in an egoic way. If that's one's intention, one should never, ever do it. It's in order to separate it's to separate oneself from sadness and limitation and put oneself firmly on the path to perfect freedom and to perfect joy. And to have a new self-definition. Eventually all have to be overcome. But to say, I am a pilgrim, and I am not an ordinary person anymore. I am a pilgrim. God has found me, and I have found God. And the thing about the pilgrim vow, and this is actually the Naya Swami vow, involves this. I'm pointing to my clothes. And this was very important for Swamiji. Almost every religious order has a habit, which is a funny word, which means the outfit that you wear. And by your clothes, you declare yourself in a certain way. And it doesn't have to be shouted from the rooftops, but it's something that you know. It definitely has been an enormous thing for me to always be dressed in blue. It just means, to me, not to anyone else, but to me, it means a great deal. It's a constant affirmation of my intention in life. Brahmacharis, the color is yellow, and they dress in yellow. Most brahmacharis dress always in yellow, or at least partially in yellow, depending on the world that they're living in, whether it's appropriate or not. But even brahmacharis I've known who've held ordinary jobs, they just don't, they wear ordinary styles, but they'll wear it in yellow. Or the girls are always wear something of yellow. There's ways to do it because you're talking to yourself and to God. The Tyagi color is white, and some Tyagis wear white all the time, or wear white for what they would consider formal spiritual occasions. Some don't. Some just dress in an ordinary, regular manner. So whether or not a Tyagi wears a visible sign of their commitment or not, it varies among the Tyagis. And of course it varies among all of us because, as Swami said, do as you feel. But and I'm going to put it this way, the beautiful advantage of the pilgrim vow is that there's no external sign, which, even though I myself have expressed how much I love the external sign, the beautiful vow of the pilgrim sign is it's a secret between you and God. Nobody else ever has to know, because you never are required. You don't become celibate. You don't close your bank accounts, which you don't have to do necessarily for any of the others. Well, the celibacy is part of it, but you just can live as you've been living, but differently. And you always know it. So I'm going to read the vow, and then I'll talk a little bit about what it means. And if I don't finish today, we'll finish tomorrow. I love that Swami, it's a vow, but it's a vow of intention. Swamiji writes a great deal in other contexts, also in this book, that the ideal of spiritual life is directional. And in the text of A Renunciate Order in the New Age, Swamiji says it's not enough to describe a goal. We also have to give people a practical way of achieving it. And that practical way of achieving it is realize that, that living up to a vow is like the tide coming in, and that sometimes a wave will go far up the beach, and then sometimes there'll just be a lot of small waves, and sometimes the waves will seem to stop, but the direction is always there. So it's not about what we are at the moment, is what we aspire to become, and the determination of the flow of our energy. Swamiji said once, if you must try to evaluate yourself spiritually or judge yourself spiritually, and then he parenthetically says, which I do not advise, he said, you must only see yourself in terms of what you aspire to become, because there is no fixed reality to human consciousness. It's a flow of energy, and we're being influenced, and we're tuning in to the cosmic flow of energy. And he even said it most interestingly, by the time you have any fixed point in your journey, by the time you can see it and define it, by definition, it's already behind you, because you are a flow of energy. So once you've accomplished that, it has changed you, and now you're going in a new direction. And so this is where again, the power of a vow is, and that's part of what makes it a sacrament, it makes it sacred, is because it's always telling you where to put your foot, where the next step is. But the pilgrim's vow of intention is the recognition that when one is taking a pilgrim's vow, there may be many factors in life that are as yet unknown, factors within oneself. In the whole book about the Renunciate Order, Swami has a number of criteria of who you need to be before you should consider taking the Naya Swami vow. And he says you must either have achieved or have made notable progress in. And it's not for sissies, what he's written out there. I'm not dealing with it because I'm not doing a book study on that book, because it would take us weeks to do it. But it's very notable. And at the pilgrim level, because often this is taken by young people, although not always, who have so much life in front of them and so many unknowns, so many unexplored areas of self, so many potentials for karmic involvements that haven't even begun to show themselves. It would not be fair to say, this is what I'm doing, because it could bind you in a way that that is not appropriate for you to be bound. So it's a vow of intention, because that's what really matters. This is what I intend to do. And if life takes me in another direction, but there's nothing in this vow that has to do with external realities. The brahmachari vow says that I wish to be single for the rest of my life. That's an intention that way. The Naya Swami vow says, I will never take a partner, or if I am married, I will see my partner as belonging only to God. But it is there, so if one takes the Naya Swami vow without a partner, it is, I will never take a partner. And it's a final vow. There it is. It's just stated like that. If a single person takes that vow, that's what you've said. This is a vow of intention. So I'll read it now. I understand, and I love that Swami it's so grounded. It starts by saying, I understand. I know what I'm doing. I understand and intend from now on to live by my understanding. See, those are two steps, aren't they? First, you understand something, and then you make a resolution to live by what you understand. Because we can understand a lot of things and simply not be interested in living by them. I understand that drinking alcohol is really bad for me. Can I have another beer? So it's like you can understand something, but then not do it. I understand that, just yelling at my kids is not a good thing, but I'm just going to keep yelling at them because they won't behave unless I do. So it's a big step to say, I understand and intend, which is I'm not even promising, but this is my intention. I intend from now on to live by my understanding that life is a pilgrimage. So we're making a declaration. The material world is not the real world. I am a visitor on this plane of existence. And a pilgrimage is a sacred journey. That's what a pilgrimage is. And a pilgrimage is to a particular destination. When I set out on pilgrimage, which I've done many times in my life, because pilgrimage is a brilliant spiritual practice. To set out on a spiritual journey, it's not a vacation, it's not an adventure, it's not for relaxation. A pilgrimage is a spiritual journey with a destination. That life itself is a pilgrimage, of which the final goal is to find and merge back into God. So this is the first declaration the pilgrim makes. Life is a pilgrimage. Many people think life is here for pleasure or for power or to get these certain things or to have these certain experiences or to be always excited or and. We don't even know, they don't even know that life is a sacred journey. Oh, life is a sacred journey. Some people think that life is meant to be a vacation. There was a man I knew who was a very nice man. We used to joke because he had a very strong vacation ethic. In any circumstances, he always tried to do as little as possible. So if you're on a pilgrimage, you're not thinking like that. I'm not here for comfort and ease. I'm on a sacred journey, and the goal is to find and merge back into God. Whoa, that's setting the bar pretty high right from the start, isn't it? So whoever you are, whatever you're doing, that's what you know that you're doing. You know, I may be climbing the corporate ladder and raising a beautiful family and living in a marvelous home, but in myself, all of these are stops along my sacred journey, and the goal of which is to merge in God. And then it says, I will endeavor resolutely, therefore, because I know it's a sacred journey and I know the goal is God, endeavor resolutely. Swami's words are so interesting. Endeavor means to do my best. He could say, I will try, but endeavor has a more powerful feeling. Resolutely, I've made a resolution that every action I take, I will endeavor resolutely, therefore, because I know it's a sacred journey, because this is a goal, I will endeavor resolutely, therefore, to direct all my thoughts and actions toward that end. This means that I can't be working for myself anymore. I can't just be thinking, what do I want? I have to measure every thought and every action according to the principle that I'm on a pilgrimage and the goal is to merge with God. So if my thoughts and if my actions are not consistent with this being a sacred journey and not just a hedonistic journey for self-indulgence, in which if I just get enough toys and have enough fun, I've been successful. No, I now must endeavor resolutely to direct all my thoughts and actions toward that end. So, and in order to do that, I will offer up all material desires for purification in the fire of divine bliss. All material desires, well, that's pretty all-encompassing, that instead of just, once we become a pilgrim, we can't just take it because we want it. We can't just hold it because we enjoy it. We can't just have it because it looks like fun. We have to take every desire and we have to offer it up into the divine. But what we offer is for purification in divine bliss. And what that means is to elevate every desire to the level of bliss, and also to measure every desire by the standard of bliss. But it's also understood that I have these desires, but I keep offering them up to God and praying to God to purify them. We're not renouncing them, we're sharing them. A friend of mine who lived a rather desolate life for a period of time told me that he'd read something somewhere that if you're going to do something anyway, even if you know it's not the highest, you should take God with you. You should take Master with you. In other words, don't be ashamed and don't separate any aspect of your life from your relationship with God. And so my friend said to me, so as a result, Master went to a lot of places he might not have gone on his own. And I always just loved that. And because of that, my friend also was able to, many of his material desires were purified in the fire of divine bliss, because he lived as he was compelled by his karma to live, but he never let go of his understanding that life is a pilgrimage and the goal is to merge with God. But this is the route we were going. So we constantly offer up all our material desires for purification, and purification in divine bliss, because the way that divine bliss purifies it is simply we don't enjoy it as much as we used to. It's just as simple as that. So it's not like it's ripped out of our hands. It's that we're just not so inclined anymore. I can think of countless things in my life that I used to think were fun that they just aren't fun anymore. And they were, but then they just stopped being fun because the contrast, because always offering it up, meaning always opening myself into another experience, gradually showed me that that experience was not nearly as much fun as I thought it was. It's just like that. Um, this was a long time. This is only halfway through. We'll just deal with this tomorrow. I'm going to tell this last story and then we'll stop. In the early 80s, Ananda Village was making an effort uh, to incorporate as a California city. And it was a project that I and two women who were both attorneys, and I worked on for about 18 months. And as a consequence, we've got involved with a number of people in the local area up in Nevada City. And one man, who was a lovely man, and he was actually the chairman of the government committee that was going to make the decision. It came to be Christmas time, and he had a tradition of having this Christmas party. So he invited us. And I mean, I'd never socialized with anyone in Nevada City before. My whole life had been Ananda since I was 24. And so we went to this party, and it was a big room with a little decoration. There was a piano in the room, but the piano was turned toward the wall, so you couldn't play it. And I'd been very used to Ananda parties. I'd put on a lot of them. We'd had a lot of holiday celebrations, and every Ananda party included lots of things that were fun. You know, people performing, there would be poetry, there would be music, and just lots of things would happen in addition to just food and schmooze and all of that sort of thing. And we were at this party, and it sort of starts developing, and it gradually became clear to me that the only thing that was going to happen was people were going to gradually get drunk. And even if they didn't get stumbling drunk, they were going to get a little tipsy. And as people began to drink, I stopped drinking when I hardly ever did, but the last time I was 18 years old. And I was just, it's just not a world I know. So we're drinking water or something, that you can just drink. And gradually people began to get a little tipsy, and they began to get more raucous. Nothing was happening. They were just making noise out of their reality. And of course, to me, it was really stark. And when we gradually saw that that was what was going to happen, we left. Now, these were nice people, and it was a nice party. But I didn't have to discipline myself to not want to do that, because I'd learned something completely other. You see, and that's how it works. That's how we transcend rather than suppress. So we keep offering these desires for purification in bliss, and we let go of a lesser pleasure because we've replaced it with a higher one. So God bless you, my friends.